last time, and you are alive. Yay, I love that happy little simple message. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, guys. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this chat, so feel free to pop a hello into the chat and let us know that you're here. Um, Welcome to Leigh Fowler. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight to talk about something that you and I both believe is not talked about enough, perimenopause. And I do want to say that the purpose of this Liminality interview series that I'm doing leading up to the book is to talk about just all things liminal. Liminality is big and it's complex and it's everywhere in our lives. And so even though I think I do a pretty good job of it in the book describing what it's all about, I kind of wanted to drip these little interviews all month and start giving people an idea of all the ways that they can see liminality in their lives. And so when you and I started talking about this weeks ago back in Niagara, I was so happy that you were willing to talk about this. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks, Carrie. Thanks for having me here. I think that this transitionary space, the liminal space, is like so fascinating because sometimes we go through it and we don't even know we're in it and you're not alone. And so I think talking about it, what it feels like and how we go through it and how we manage these different like spaces and transitions, it's so powerful. And your book is just going to help so many people.
Thank you. So well said. I was hoping that you would share with some people. I know that you have some solutions in place already, and so I'm excited to hear about those too. But I was hoping you'd share with everybody like what it felt like before you figured some things out.
Yeah, so I had heard of menopause. I had never heard of perimenopause.
Yeah,
So,
same.
I think that was one step, closer was learning there was this thing called perimenopause. But even backtracking before that, my emotions and mood and body was changing a lot and in many different ways. I would say in at least 10 different ways. And I felt very alone in it. I didn't understand it. And I blamed myself, and sort of not,
Sure.
maybe resting enough or being too stressed or and some of the things that popped up for me were just getting irritated really quickly, having rage. And I'm a very laid back person, very happy go lucky,
So it's like
optimistic.
super different all of a sudden.
Yeah, super different.
What is
And
going on?
that was kind of the first sign for me. One of the things that I shared when I reached out to a naturopath was, I said, this is kind of strange. And I just thought I'd mention it and all the things that are changing. And I said, like, I do the dishes. And then after I'm done, I sit down and I don't cool down. I just I continue to heat up. And I'm not the typical, movie cinema depicted hot flash girl. I didn't even know I was having a hot flash, but that was
Yeah.
also explained to me that they show up differently for people. And for me, it was my body temperature just wouldn't cool down the way it used to. So it would feel like, why I'm not moving, I'm super relaxed. Why am I still hot?
Right. And when you're right, when media shows it to us in one way, or when one way is sort of cliched, we get this picture that, oh, that's what menopause looks like. And you're so right. It's always labeled menopause, not perimenopause. And
Yeah.
it's real. Perimenopause is really the more important conversation I think to be having. And you think that it's got to look that one way. And and then it becomes confusing when we don't fit that mold.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, some of the other things were like as I'm 46 now, so I was 45 and my period symptoms were changing. Beforehand, I was getting a lot of cramps, like worse than I'd ever had my whole life, like back pain. My breasts were like hurting and feeling like just like I was pregnant again. I was like, what is happening?
That's where my mind went. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so you're sort of like experiencing these things, but then you don't have a word for them or a name to put your finger on exactly what is happening because it happens in your
That's when I feel
cycle. And
crazy, when I can't name things.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so navigating that array of symptoms and then finally sitting in a room and saying to somebody, like, here are all the things that are happening. And they say, okay, we're going to look at your hormones. We're going to test some things and we're going to figure out what's going on so you can feel more like yourself. And that always felt kind of strange to me, Carrie, because I was like, well, I am myself. Like, this is me. Like, this is, one of the things that had showed up for me was a bit of anxiety before
Yeah.
before my periods, like a week or two before my periods. And I was told that that's probably one of your hormones dropping right before your period. And when we can kind of look at that hormone level, that may also be affecting your period symptoms. It might be affecting like all that stuff started to go away when I started some naturally compounded, biocompounded progesterone cream on my wrists a week before my periods. And
The
a lot
anxiety is one of the pieces that when you and I were talking before, and you mentioned it, I went, oh my gosh.
yeah.
Well, this is why we as women need to be talking about it. That's why I'm convinced we have got to share our stories. This cannot be taboo. This cannot be mysterious. We need to talk about it so that light bulbs can go off like that. So what do
Yes.
you have in place now? You're doing you just mentioned a little bit, but you're doing some things that are really a lot of self-care and self-compassion.
Yeah. So, and just to note, like, I think that when we do have these symptoms and we don't know what they are, there's also like a little bit of embarrassment. Like, am I not taking care of my body or my mind?
Sure.
Like, is this just something I need to figure out, and not realizing that it's your hormones that are changing? And so, one of the first things I did was to accept that my body was changing
Yeah.
and to accept this new transition instead of resisting it or denying it. And I think that was a big step into going, okay, now I can create my own protocol, because we're all different. We all have different, things that show up for the perimenopause. So one of the things I kind of put together with the help of my naturopath and also other things I've been doing was something I call my period protocol. And so 2 weeks before my period, I would combine different things my naturopath had suggested, along with certain things. Like, I read that carrot juice would reduce the cramp. So I would have a shot of carrot juice every morning. I would take my B complex stress vitamins. I would not have my coffee until after 10 o'clock. I would schedule like one Epsom salt bath a day leading up into the period cycle, just like that 30 minutes to calm
Yep.
down and recharge. I would drink, so I go from 2 coffee down to 1 coffee. I would eat protein in the mornings. And the last thing was drinking anti-inflammatory tea before I went to bed. And, add in some meditation, exercise, and walks. And
Mm,
all of a sudden, I was feeling my best and sliding through, the cycle without having all these symptoms showing up and taking over my life. And those include things like waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day of your cycle, or like at
right.
the same time, you're like, okay, what is going
Not
on?
getting good sleep, not feeling, yeah, constantly out of it. I love all the things you have in place because, as we've talked about in my book, it's self-compassion, self-compassion, self-compassion is such a cornerstone of getting unstuck
Yeah.
from these places. I love that you said that acceptance was the first part, because that's such a major step in getting unstuck of wherever you're at,
Thank
saying,
you.
okay. Um, and I also talk about flexibility, like a flexible mindset, which you and I have said that realization that it doesn't have to be just one way, that we're all different.
Yeah.
So this can be okay in lots of different ways. And then my third thing that I really talk about in the book is community. And you have something really cool that you do around community. I would love for you to share that.
It was something one of my healers, Heidi Martin, suggested to me, was
Yay,
just
Heidi. Yeah, shout out to Heidi.
and Heidi suggested I develop something called my own soul table. And
Soul.
that's where a soul table.
I'm
So
going to
I
type.
strategically pick the souls who will support me, lift me up, and kind of like I could go to for advice, support. And so, I put my naturopath on that soul table. And the piece about that is, a lot of us, when we're advocating for our health, we find that we can hit resistance, especially like, I've heard rumors that in Canada, our doctors get 1 hour of training on menopause in their whole, 8 years of training and certification. I mean, I don't know if that's a rumor, but I
Wow.
don't find like a regular
Wouldn't be
doctor.
surprised.
Yeah, they're not talking about it and identifying it. And so I wanted to also attract like compassionate doctors that were there for me, that were showing up for me in a bigger way, that weren't resisting my desire to understand what was going on with my body.
And
And
your
so
personal insights, like listening to what your wisdom is.
oh yeah, because that compassion piece is also honoring your gut intuition, honoring your truth, and following that feeling that inside of you. Like we have our inner truth, and we know what's going on, and but we often can go through cycles where we don't listen to it enough, and so it's so important to trust that guidance that we have inside. And the soul table was even my lawyer, my financial advisor, my therapist, my boyfriend, like people that are only going to lift me up and support me and want to see me at my best. And I think that's so important when we cultivate even the friends. Like Heidi and I talked about even calling in a best friend. Like I think as women, I don't know about you, but like I don't cultivate friendships as much as an older woman like we did in high school and
Sure.
university. Not as many opportunities. So I enjoy
Life.
community and bringing people together now, and bringing them into my home, or providing opportunities for my clients to meet each other, because that's so important in like-mindedness and supporting each other's dreams.
Yeah, 100%. It's just that beautiful to me, that transformation. I've been listening to this great ebook this week about the transition from the mother to the crone. And the crone just, yes, right? Like just knows things in her wisdom. And this is what I'm hearing from you is you're pulling in all those pieces of wisdom at this point in your life. And that's so beautiful. And you look so beautiful tonight. I want to say thank you for popping on because as people will notice, you're so sparkly and shiny and you're in this beautiful setting, and you actually stepped out of a really cool networking dinner with a TEDx speaker to come and be on with us tonight. So that's really cool of you. Thank you so much for just showing up and being your authentic self. And viewers, thank you so much for being here. And make sure you come back next Tuesday to hear about the liminal space of grief.
Ooh,
And yes, so keeping your authentic
absolutely.
selves. And thank you for being here. Thank you, Leigh.
Thanks for having me, Carrie.